Another popular Japanese character reformatted for the US market, diluting so much of what made it popular in the first place. When that failed, they tried again. And then again after that. It's a story filled with ghosts, echoes, and dreamlike half-remembrances. And also a cartoon about giant robots fighting each other for the fate of the Earth. Hi, I'm Dan Larson, and this is the history of Tranzor Z. Thank you to Boxu for sponsoring this video. Use my code toygalaxy10 in the link in the description below to get 10% off your own authentic Japanese snack crate subscription from Boxu. Boxu is a premium Japanese snack box subscription service that delivers original assortments of Japanese snacks and tea pairings. Every month you'll receive a box with a different theme. The snacks will always be different. It's a gourmet journey through Japan every month. This box was themed around Sakura season, the time of year when Japanese cherry blossoms bloom all across Japan and people celebrate by gathering under the trees for hanami, or flower viewing, and enjoy picnics together. It includes snacks from places like Fukuoka, home of the newest life-size Gundam statue, Tokyo, the capital of Japan, but also the birthplace of Hayao Miyazaki, and Shizuoka, where half of Mount Fuji lives. If you like savory treats, perhaps the Oranda Senbei Plum Kelp from Yamagata is for you. If you've got a sweeter palate, try the Strawberry Choco Mochi from Ehime. Use my code toygalaxy10 in the link in the description below to get 10% off your own authentic Japanese subscription from Boxu. Don't miss out on this delicious snack journey through Japan. And thank you again to Boxu. This is not the history of Mazinger Z, but so much of Tranzor Z derived directly from Mazinger Z that we can't help but touch on some of Mazinger Z's story, and maybe even a little bit of Great Mazinger. Rest assured, the Mazinger family of super robots will get its own more comprehensive video later. Tranzor Z is a 65-episode English translation and localization of the classic Japanese anime series Mazinger Z that aired in Japan from 1972 to 1974. Arriving in syndication in 1985, over a decade later, Tranzor Z's first line should have been, "How do you do, fellow kids?" Tranzor Z is a giant robot created by Dr. Wells to combat the evil forces of Dr. Demon and his assistant Devaline. Using the Fork of Fury, the evil duo has taken command of a series of mechanical brutes, an army of doom machines, which they intend to use to conquer the world. However, utilizing a one-of-a-kind metal called Super Alloy Z made from volcanium, an element he discovered, Dr. Wells developed Tranzor Z as a top-secret weapon. It is indestructible. It is the mightiest of all robots, the most powerful weapon the world has ever known. Just before he dies, off-screen, from injuries sustained when Devaline's forces destroy his mountain villa that hides Tranzor Z, Dr. Wells explains everything to his grandsons Tommy Davis and Toad. They must know that the pilot who controls Tranzor Z will have the power to destroy Earth. He will be a super being. But Tranzor Z can make his master a great hero or a horrendous villain. In the wrong hands, like the evil Dr. Demon, Tranzor Z can be the most horribly destructive force the world has ever seen. Therefore, the pilot must be someone who can be trusted, a person of good character. As the pilot of Tranzor Z, Tommy Davis will join forces with other heroic warriors to counter Dr. Demon and Devaline, for Tommy is true of spirit, and Tranzor Z is the mightiest fighter for law and justice ever devised by the mind of man. Tranzor Z is one of multiple attempts to bring the Japanese Mazinger Z franchise to the US. Mazinger Z is a super robot franchise originally created as a manga series by Go Nagai in 1972. It ran in various Japanese comic magazines through 1974. Go Nagai is one of the great pioneers of manga and anime and is credited with creating foundational works for genres that remain popular today. Super robots, magical girl, post-apocalypse, and ecchi. A true renaissance man of pop culture works. Mazinger Z was so popular from the outset that it was picked up by Fuji TV to be adapted into an animated series for Japanese television while it was being published. 92 episodes ran from December of 1972 to September of 1974. Given that it was the source of the animated material, the plot is obviously very similar to Tranzor Z. The Mazinger Z cartoon was one of the most popular shows to air on Japanese television in general, the most popular anime series of all time up to that point in 1974. Spoiler alert for a 50-year-old cartoon series, Mazinger Z ended with the titular robot's destruction and was followed directly by a sequel series with a new and improved robot called Great Mazinger in comics and on television in 1974. While it wasn't the first attempt, Mazinger Z was adapted as Tranzor Z for the US market by 3B in 1984, a company that seems to have disappeared somewhere between 1985 and today. Or at the very least has a name so generic that it defies internet search, especially if, as it appears, no one has bothered to keep a record of who they are and where they came from. To the best of our research, 3B was a company founded by former members of the production team for Star Blazers, the 1979 American adaptation of the 1974 Japanese animated series Space Battleship Yamato. According to the internet, having worked for Sunbow Entertainment, they broke off to create their own company to do basically the same thing. That said, the internet has been known to be wrong, with one site relying on another's incorrect information to establish their own facts. While it is possible that the team at 3B was made up of former Sunbow Entertainment staff, it is more likely that they were from Sunwagon, which was the name of the production team that actually worked on Star Blazers. The dearth of information related to Sunwagon isn't any more helpful in learning about who they were, and the only thing that appears in Sunwagon's portfolio is Star Blazers. Among 3B's credits is an adaptation of the Japanese television series Message from Space: Galactic Wars, a spin-off of the 1978 Toei film Message from Space. The series was retitled Space Ninja for the US market and released direct-to-home video. Space Ninja never aired on US television, but a compilation feature retitled Swords of the Space Arc was shown on the Christian Broadcast Network in 1983. The executive producer of Tranzor Z is a virtual ghost. Bunker Jenkins, a name that should get an A+ for search engine optimization, returns a handful of IMDb credits, starting with directing 1980's Daddy Longlegs and ending with producing, directing, and acting in 1997's The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. You begin to wonder if Bunker Jenkins is friends with Alan Smithy.
The afternoon power hour brings two mega heroes to Channel 60. At 3:30, Tranzor Z battles the vicious Doom Machines, and when he meets up with Deviline, Tranzor Z shakes hands and comes out fighting. Then at 4, Voltron, Defender of the Universe, confronts the nasty Hagar. When these lethal lions join to form Voltron, Hagar finds he's no match for Voltron's power. Watch the two power professionals with Tranzor Z at 3:30 and Voltron at 4 on Channel 60, WPWR, the power of Chicagoland.
The early 1980s was a big deal for kids' television, a big profitable deal where toy companies were able to churn out 30-minute commercials for their products, disguised as children's television entertainment thanks to the deregulation of the Reagan administration. Several companies took advantage of this by creating new brands and then supporting them with new toys. Hasbro with G.I. Joe, Mattel with Masters of the Universe. Other companies chose to import and adapt pre-existing properties, usually from Japan, especially if there were toys to go along with it. It's cheaper, easier, and faster than creating new brands, new products from scratch. It's easy. Step 1, license the footage and the toys. Step 2, remove all the violent or questionable content from the cartoon that won't make it past the more stringent US children's television broadcast standards. Step 3, it's possible that 3B Productions chose Mazinger Z to adapt because so many of the popular super robot properties Toei produced had recently been adapted to the US television market in 1980. A group of shows packaged in an anthology called Force 5 included Getter Robo G, adapted and renamed Starvengers, Starzinger, renamed Space Cateers, Guy King, Danguard Ace, and Grandizer. One of the best examples of this method of important adaptation was World Events Productions' partnership with Matchbox, Panache Place, and LJN to create the Voltron series from Toei's Beast King Go Lion and Die Rugger 15. Beast King Go Lion was released in 1981 in Japan. Die Rugger followed it in 1982. In 1985, they were repackaged for a transforming robot-hungry audience in US as Lion Force Voltron and Vehicle Force Voltron, respectively. Voltron's success on television and in the toy aisle likely inspired Bunker Jenkins and 3B Productions to apply the same formula to Mazinger Z, minus the partnership with a toy company. 92 episodes of Toei's Mazinger Z would need to be chopped down to 65, the standard number for syndication in the US. And that was fine because there was plenty of content in the original series that wasn't going to fly on kids' television. Mostly the violence, the torture, the dismemberment, male-on-female violence, some suggestive material, not the least of which was removing the majority of direct depictions of Aphrodite A's missile-firing chest, if not the implication.
Because of the implication.
See, Mazinger, or Tranzor, teams up with another giant powerful robot warrior called Aphrodite A. Where Mazinger can fire off rocket fists, Aphrodite can fire missiles from her chest. This was toned down by showing Aphrodite's pilot Jessica activating the firing mechanism, then cutting to the missiles already deployed. Some of the gaps in footage had to be filled with something, and that something frequently came from Mazinger Z's sequel, Great Mazinger. From the very beginning, eagle-eyed viewers can easily spot the Great Mazinger footage due to the very obvious differences in the robot design. Perhaps not as obvious to a 1985 audience with no capacity to rewind or pause to scrutinize the difference, and especially not 10-year-olds who were just interested in the clash bang of heroic giant robots fighting evil giant robots. In Japan, Mazinger Z ended on a cliffhanger that wasn't resolved until the sequel series Great Mazinger. The limitation of 65 episodes allowed Bunker Jenkins and 3B to engineer an actual ending for Tranzor Z. There was enough footage to make it look as though Dr. Demon had been defeated and the heroes saved the Earth.
That's my brother!
But is Tranzor Z's work ever to end? As long as there is evil in the world, the might to fight for right will be needed.
The cast of Tranzor Z included a few names or voices that might be familiar. Greg Berger played Tommy Davis, Devlin, the narrator, and additional voices. Mona Marshall played Jessica Davis, Toad, and Chris. Bunker Jenkins himself stepped into the booth for Bobo, Dr. Demon, and Dr. Manning. Tranzor Z's existence was a result of Voltron's success. Tranzor Z's failure was also a result of Voltron's success. Thanks to its age and sudden arrival on the scene in the wake of Voltron, it was seen as a copycat, inferior in every way, which was appropriate given how much older its source material was. Where Voltron had the support of a toy line from Matchbox, Tranzor Z made no such efforts. Or rather, Tranzor Z had no branded toys released in the US at the time the show was airing. Mazinger Z and Great Mazinger toys had been on US shelves just a few years earlier by Mattel as part of their Shogun Warriors toy line from 1977 to 1980. Tranzor Z was never released to home video in the US, but the episodes are available online, as are other previous attempts to adapt Mazinger Z to the US television market. In 1985, Tranzor Z was the latest attempt, but certainly not the first. In 1977, Toei themselves commissioned an English dub of the series to sell in Western television markets, produced by M&M Communications, a subsidiary of MK Company. Recorded in Honolulu, Hawaii, it was a more direct adaptation of the series than Tranzor Z, with fewer edits and many of the original character names intact. The opening and closing themes were translated and re-recorded. Most Western markets passed, but those episodes did air in Hawaii and the Philippines, and potentially other international markets. It was so popular in the Philippines that another handful of episodes were dubbed specifically for that market, meaning that there were around 30 total episodes of Mazinger Z nearly a decade before Tranzor Z. That version of Mazinger very likely would have continued to air in the Philippines were it not for Ferdinand Marcos, the dictatorial president himself, having control over what was broadcast on radio and television. Some of those episodes found their way onto home video cassettes released by Mountain Video in the UK in 1983. Tranzor Z has no legacy. It never caught on as a brand the way Voltron and many other imported Japanese shows have over the years. In fact, to this day, Mazinger Z has still not found a foothold in the US under any format, under any name, under any format. Have I made myself clear? There's a point I'm trying to make.
Nice ad-lib. Really smooth.
Repurposed, recycled, a shadow of what it was in Japan, Tranzor Z was the strongest effort to break Mazinger Z into the West, and even that was overshadowed by the decisions made by the producers translating it and the competition of an already oversaturated kids' television and toy market. A piece of a bigger picture, an echo instead of the source of the sound, Mazinger Z may have been a pioneer in Japan worthy of global recognition, but Tranzor Z exists as merely a footnote. Thanks for watching. Please hit like, hit subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Thank you very much to those of you who already are. Check us out on Twitch at twitch.tv/toygalaxy if you're in the position to help the channel grow. If you would like early access to the videos ad-free, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/toygalaxy and let us know in the comments down below if you knew about Tranzor Z or Mazinger Z or Great Mazinger. If I asked you to pick either of these guys out of a giant super robot lineup, how close are we getting? Was it even broadcast in your region in the 1980s? It was broadcast in mine. I remember kids talking about it at school, but I'm guessing I never watched it because it was opposite something I was more interested in. Probably G.I. Joe.
Cut.
I think it was on in the morning when I had to catch the school bus.